While most residents are still asleep, perhaps the invisible wheels of life are silently turning, not just in the general rhythm of the city, but deep within the mind of each individual. It is precisely in these quiet, less distracting moments, or perhaps due to the very lack of illuminating awareness, that a thought-provoking truth becomes clearer. People often don't see themselves stuck in a vicious cycle. This isn't an individual weakness, but seems to be a common human psychological tendency, a blind spot that causes us to repeat negative patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior without knowing, or without the ability to escape. 1. Vicious cycles, the invisible prisons. A vicious cycle is a repeating chain of events, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors where the negative outcome of the previous loop becomes the trigger or activating condition for the next. It's like a hamster wheel constantly spinning, a path that digs itself deeper each time we walk it, or a prison without physical bars that effectively confines our minds and lives. These vicious cycles exist in every aspect of life. In relationships, continuously being attracted to unsuitable or unavailable partners, leading to disappointment, hurt, and then seeking validation from similar types. Or couples repeating the same arguments without ever addressing the root cause. In work and study, the vicious cycle of procrastination, postponing anxiety, rushing poor results, self-blame, more anxiety, more postponement, or the fear of failure leading to not daring to take on challenges, not developing skills, and reinforcing the belief of being inadequate. In mental health, the loop of negative thinking, a small mistake, harsh self-criticism, feeling worthless, loss of motivation, avoiding action, missing opportunities, reinforcing the belief of worthlessness, or social anxiety causing people to avoid interaction, leading to isolation, and then increased anxiety when facing others. In finances, the debt loop, overspending, borrowing to cover expenses, paying interest or principal, shortage of money, more spending, borrowing. The common characteristic of these vicious cycles is their self-sustaining nature and tendency to tighten their grip, if not actively intervene. 2. The veil of ignorance. Why don't we realize? What is surprising and concerning is that, despite suffering from repeated negative consequences, many people still don't realize they are stuck. This lack of clarity isn't due to a lack of intelligence, but stems from many complex psychological mechanisms. Normalization and familiarity. When a pattern of behavior or thought repeats long enough, it becomes so familiar that we consider it our nature, or the way the world works. I'm just a procrastinator. Lent is supposed to hurt. That's just my life. Familiarity, even with pain, sometimes provides a false sense of security compared to the uncertainty of change. Lack of self-awareness and introspection. Modern life, with its fast pace and many distractions, leaves us little time and space to pause, reflect on ourselves, and analyze the cause and effect in our behaviors and emotions. We live on the surface, reacting out of habit instead of acting consciously. Psychological defense mechanisms. To protect the ego from harsh truths or uncomfortable feelings like shame, guilt, fear, the mind automatically employs mechanisms such as, "Oh, Daniel, I don't have a problem," or rationalization, finding seemingly logical reasons to justify negative behavior. "I procrastinate because I need pressure to work effectively." Projection, blaming others or external circumstances instead of acknowledging one's own role. Os is difficult, that's why I hate my job. My ex was terrible, that's why I lost faith. Cognitive biases. The brain tends to take mental shortcuts, leading to errors in thinking. Confirmation bias. Seeking out and paying attention only to information that confirms existing beliefs, for example, believing you can't succeed, so only remembering failures. Sunk cost fallacy. Continuing to pursue a pattern because too much time, effort, or emotion has already been invested, even knowing it's ineffective. Avoidance of uncomfortable emotions. Facing the vicious cycle means confronting painful emotions and unpleasant truths about oneself. Many choose to avoid or ignore it to not experience this discomfort. Lack of objective perspective. We are too close to our own problems, like not seeing the forest for the trees. A step back or outside perspective is needed to recognize the overall pattern. Environmental influence and conditioning. Sometimes, vicious cycles are formed or reinforced by family environment or social culture. Women must sacrifice, men don't cry. 3. The cost of being stuck. Failing to recognize and escape vicious cycles causes heavy losses, stagnation, and wasted potential. Life remains stagnant, with no personal growth, unable to achieve desired goals. Talents and abilities are wasted, repeated suffering, continuously experiencing the same negative emotions, failures, and conflicts, leading to exhaustion and mental erosion. Damaged relationships. Negative patterns in communication and behavior hurt those around us and break emotional bonds. Health problems. Chronic stress, anxiety, depression, and physical issues caused by bad habits. Feelings of helplessness and despair. When efforts to change seem futile because they don't target the root of the loop, people can easily fall into a sense of helplessness, believing they cannot change their fate. 4. Tearing down the veil. The path to awareness. The first and most crucial step to escaping a vicious cycle is recognizing it. This is the process of lifting the veil of ignorance, requiring courage and conscious effort. Cultivate self-awareness. Dedicate quiet time to observe your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without judgment. Practice meditation. Keep an emotional journal. Ask yourself, why did I react that way? What is really going on? Seek objective perspectives. Bravely share with trusted friends, insightful family members, or preferably, mental health professionals or therapists. They can help you see patterns you don't recognize yourself. Record patterns. Focus on observing and documenting repeating sequences of events, emotions, behaviors, and their consequences. Visualizing the loop helps identify it more clearly. Identify triggers and rewards, even negative ones. Understand what usually starts the loop and what short-term benefit, even if just temporary relief or a sense of familiarity, is maintaining it. Accept responsibility, not self-blame. Instead of blaming externals entirely, consider the role of your own reactions, thoughts, and choices in maintaining the loop. Be willing to face discomfort. Understand that seeing the truth and changing old habits will come with initial feelings of discomfort, fear, or pain. 5. From awareness to action. Recognizing the vicious cycle is a breakthrough, but it's not enough to escape. Specific and persistent action is needed to break old patterns and establish new, healthier pathways. This includes trying different responses to triggers, learning new coping skills, seeking support, and accepting that the change process takes time, may involve setbacks, but requires perseverance. Conclusion: it is also a reminder that, although we may have unconsciously lived in the dark, vicious cycles of the mind, there is always an opportunity for awareness and change. Not seeing oneself stuck in a vicious cycle is a common psychological phenomenon maintained by familiarity, defense mechanisms, and a lack of self-observation skills. It leads to stagnation, repeated suffering, and the waste of life's precious potential. However, that veil of ignorance can absolutely be lifted by bravely facing ourselves, cultivating self-awareness, seeking objective perspectives, and being willing to accept the truth. We can identify the invisible prisons holding us captive. Awareness is the first light shining into the darkness, the key that unlocks the door to liberation. And from that awareness, with effort and perseverance, we can completely break negative loops and write a new chapter for our lives. A chapter of freedom, consciousness, and greater fulfillment. Starting right now in this present moment.